Hey Ben, how's it going?
Let's continue. Hey, going well. How you doing?
I'm good. So I was so surprised when you told me that you were going to have DBS all of a sudden, like next week. How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, it kind of crept up on out of nowhere for me as well. Although it's something I've been knowing that's been coming for a long time. And now that it's more or less here, well, it still doesn't really feel exactly like it's here. It doesn't feel like I'm going into the OR next week. It still feels a little detached from me.
Hmm.
But I find myself oddly looking forward to it. There's definitely something weird in me, but I'm really curious to know what the experience is like. I want to know what it's like to feel when somebody's drilling inside your skull. I want to know what it's like to feel the stimulation getting turned on. Yeah, just the whole experience seems. I've always been kind of a seeker of novelty and a seeker of new experiences, and this is as novel an experience I think as you can ask for.
Yep.
Uh, I'm just more than anything curious to know what it's all like. There is some fear in there. There's some trepidation. Obviously, there's some risks involved. There's some concerns about the pain and how annoying the post-op is going to be and how annoying the recovery time is and all that stuff. But I'm driven, I guess, more just by the curiosity to know what it feels like.
So why did this seem like the right thing? Why were you considering this at all right now? I mean, what were your symptoms? What were things that you found that were not well managed with your current regimen?
So for me, it just became the on-off fluctuations became rather bothersome, and they still are to this day. When I'm off, it's hard to do the work that I want to do. When I'm on, it's hard to do the work that I want to do. My off is a little too off. I'm too bradykinetic, too rigid, too much of a tremor. When I'm on, I have too much dyskinesia. And I find like getting that balance between the two to be incredibly difficult right now. I'd say throughout the day, I have about maybe an hour or two where I really feel like myself. Like even now when I'm pretty off right now, I can't say I feel like myself. I'm definitely not as comfortable as I otherwise would be. I'm not as relaxed as I would normally be because of this tremor, because of the rigidity, and I guess that's what appealed about DBS to me. Is it promised, or it's not a promise, but it's the hope of getting more of that in between time, balancing it out so you don't have those wild fluctuations and hopefully feel more like yourself, even though you're kind of aided by a machine to get there.
Yeah. I know you had some hesitation when we first met. You were even asking me about my opinions and stuff like that. So I was just wondering, so just going back to the beginning, just to kind of review. So you had some subtle symptoms initially of tremor, was it, at the beginning of your presentation with the Parkinson symptoms?
Yeah, it was tremor and a little bit of rigidity at the beginning.
And in retrospect, so that when was the date that you noticed that you were on a trip, I think, to in Guatemala, you told me, right?
Yeah, I was about 25 years old, so it was about 11 years ago now.
Okay.
And that journey, that gradual process of it getting worse and worse and worse over time, it's something that you see coming along the way, but you don't really know what each moment is going to be like. You don't really know what that like gradual snowballing of symptoms is going to feel like. Because early on in everyone's journey, I think DBS sounds like such a abhorrent idea. Like to imagine somebody drilling inside your skull seems like something I would never ever want to do. But the closer you get to it, the more bothersome your symptoms become, the more accepting you are of going through something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, even now, or I guess it'll always be this way, but I talk to people that are outside the neuro world, and it seems like the craziest thing in the world to them. And to me, having spoken to so many patients now who have gone through it before, having read about it a lot, having seen so many videos about it, it seems relatively benign and relatively normal. And also, like this morning, I was speaking actually to the anesthesiologist.
Just hold on one second. I'm just gonna pause. Okay.
Okay, so I think, yeah, so I was talking to a member of the surgical team this morning, actually, and I was asking him all sorts of like metaphysical questions about consciousness and the self and what DBS does to like one's sense of identity. And he was just like, slow down, buddy. You're just getting a couple leads in your STN. It's really not that big a deal. Like they have some patients there, especially some like extreme epilepsy cases that have like 20 leads in their brain. So that was kind of comforting. It kind of eased my concerns a bit. I didn't realize, in their perspective anyway, how routine this is. And maybe they don't realize how traumatic it is being on the other side of this as well.
Yeah.
But it's comforting to know that that this is so kind of blasé to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that you're getting it done at the center that pioneered some of these techniques, and by, you know, some of the group that is, you know, world leaders. So I think for them, this is, you're a young, healthy guy with, you know, Parkinson's, and they're just putting in electrodes, and you should, you know, be in and out, and it shouldn't be a problem. I think that, you know, for the person going through it though, you feel, I think you were telling me, there was maybe a concept that you would be like a bit more like a bionic man, or like a robot kind of, or something. Like, how does that make you feel, that there's something kind of that's not like a foreign device, or a you know, non-human substance that's in your being? What does that make you feel like?
Yeah, I imagine that it feels weird to be controlled by a machine and to be kind of regulated by this battery pack and these electrodes that are now in my brain, and to have all of that be outside of your control. But at the same time, I also realize that the way your brain works now is very much like a machine as well. It's not like I have control over my emotions to any perfect degree. A lot of it is kind of just, it happens on its own accord. And with this, there might be even a little bit more regularity to it. It might be more predictable. So I don't know, my views on this are constantly changing, and I'm always trying to anticipate what it's going to feel like. I think at this stage, what I realize is that I need to kind of knock down all my preconceived notions about what it's going to be and just experience it, feel it firsthand, kind of come to my own conclusions, and just ground myself in the reality of what it is by experiencing it as I go through the whole process. But I'm curious actually, what do you see in your patients pre and post? What are the differences that you notice? Not just symptoms wise, but personality, because you hear about some changes in people's mood and in people's perspective going forward. I know people have, there's reports of cases of apathy growing afterwards.
Yeah.
What do you see pre and post?
So I love how you've turned the tables now, Ben. So I don't know. I mean, I think everyone's quite different. And, you know, we tend to see probably a little bit of an older population of patients at the VA. We're seeing, you know, veterans who come with their own sort of, you know, life experiences. And, you know, I've taken care of many patients at the UCLA site as well. I think it's a remarkable, you know, surgery. It's a really life-changing in many ways with respect to movement disorders in general. And I have, you know, one of my really good friends is actually this pediatric neurologist who just presented some videos of dystonia to, you know, a group of fellows. And I was, you know, lurking on a Zoom meeting, and just, you know, the pre-video and the post-video is like unbelievable, right? Like, you're like, wow, we've like changed, like a DYT1 kid who was like literally like a pretzel curled up like on the ground, like rolling on the ground to move forward, is, you know, walking relatively normally. And, you know, this has been a huge, like, you know, disease altering kind of mind blowing, you know, thing that we have to offer patients with dystonia, with essential tremor, with Parkinson's. I think that these are, you know, really been refined over the years, and they're very exciting. I think I was around back in the day when there was lesional surgeries where literally they would stick, you know, something and kill tissue. And even in Toronto, actually, I think Andreas probably doesn't remember this, but I was I think this third-year medical student on the service with some of the original pallidotomy sort of gang of patients that was in Toronto when I was a medical student. So I think we've refined these. We've been able to, you know, put these electrodes in and program around side effects. And I think, you know, sort of, you know, what we're killing tissue or doing that, there's nothing that's, I think, terribly irreversible that we're doing in some way. So I think that's kind of reassuring, right? Like, so if ultimately it's just something that you hate and is horrible, which I really have yet to meet a patient that's like that, then, you know, we, you know, can always shut it off and take it out, I guess, eventually, or shut it off, you know, if there's something that happens. So that I think is exciting. But yes, I think, you know, Parkinson's is a complex disease, as you and I have both talked about. You know, there's sort of this, the non-motor issues that come about, the sort of subtle things that are, I think, you know, in ways that we can't really put our finger on, that we've tried to elucidate. So like, what are those sort of personality things that happen with disease? What are the secret sauces that help motivate people? What are the sort of dynamics in the family and other things. And you know, so I think dopamine is one element of replacing, you know, chemicals that are missing, but it's such a complex disease that I think a lot of the non-motor issues probably are not touched by DBS. And so those are still kind of happening, and the changes are happening still, that are the cascade of things that change over time. So I think, you know, even though we can really help a subset of symptoms very, very effectively, it's not, you know, a complete, you know, cure for the disease, or the fix all for everything for every patient. So I think patient selection is important. A good surgeon is really important. And I think being able to have a connection with the programmer and the team, so that they know who you were, what your expectations were, so that it's not just, you know, a drive-by, like, hey, let's, you know, like a pacemaker where we're just like adjusting some numbers and then you go out the door, and we can do it, you know, on the phone, and it's just like literally like a tweak, right? And that we are not asking you about these other things, is sort of what the hope is that you have a psychologist that can do some neuropsych testing, make sure that we understand what you're bringing into the surgery, and then, you know, be able to follow sort of these things afterwards. And then have, I think, a group, a kind of a support system for the person who's undergoing the surgery, where, you know, if it's your parents or your, you know, your wife or your son or whoever, who can report back if there are changes that have been, you know, noticed, and then people can kind of be honest about what is happening. And I have seen over the years some personality changes. I think I would say that the most prominent thing that I think happens is this: sometimes people get a bit impulsive. So there's sort of a sense that, like, they're physically so much better, and then they start doing things sometimes that are not so, you know, smart from a Parkinson's perspective. You know, like why were you hanging like Christmas tree lights up on the roof, like, of your 5-story, you know, house or whatever? And you know, so things that they wouldn't have ordinarily thought to do, suddenly there's maybe a new lease on life. I don't really know, but I think there's also, my sense is that certain locations cause some of this impulsivity that you know, needs to be also kept in check because of safety issues and things like that. So I think, again, that sort of free communication and honesty with the treatment team, along with the patient and their loved ones, is key.
Yeah, and that latter part about managing expectations is something that I have a constant tug of war with, not only with myself, but with the patients that I speak to that have gone through this before. Because some of them speak of it like it's a miracle cure. Some of them speak of it like it's not much of anything. So it's hard to know what to expect for any one individual. But then the other part of it that you mentioned, the lack of inhibition that might come about as a result, that's something that I'm going to be closely monitoring myself, because I've always been very spontaneous and uninhibited in some ways. I mean, like, as soon as I graduated university, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And 3 days later, I found myself on a plane going to Ghana for the summer. So I've always had that kind of.
It's not necessarily, you know, lack of spontaneity or doing, but it's sometimes just from a safety perspective, right? Like, so, you know, like I think people tend to fall more sometimes with DBS, even though that certain things are actually better treated from, you know, their motor standpoint, but maybe they're just doing things that are a little bit, you know, sort of more risky in some settings or whatever. So, I mean, I think it just depends on the series and what the outcome measures are. But, you know, I think certain things that are, you know, maybe activities that aren't the smartest, you know, especially in older people who might be more set up for these fall risks and things.
I can imagine why that would happen, because after such a long period of time of being limited and really not being able to experience everything that you want to experience, you're suddenly free to do more things. So I could definitely see myself maybe jumping out of a plane in the not too distant future if it all works out well.
That's cute. Well, I mean, I think it will be, you know, great for you to finally, I mean, I think if it's been something that you've been thinking about, and I know things have been put on hold due to this pandemic and stuff like that. What's your feeling on sort of the timing of it all, given sort of the fact that Toronto's still kind of got some issues with COVID right now?
So the COVID, I mean, it delayed it a little bit, but it doesn't seem to be affecting the prognosis, the timeline going forward. But it does sound like an annoying 2 or 3 months after the surgery, through all the recovery period and through the programming. It does sound like quite the ordeal to go through. And you're very limited during those times, and you're also anticipating changes all the time and you don't know quite what to think and how to plan your days. So I'm expecting a period of adjustment. I've already like planned to basically not do anything for at least a month afterwards and just recover and see how I feel and take everything, I guess, day by day.
So I have a couple questions for you. One is, so you're very close to, I think in some ways, Dr. Fasano, for example, I think, and you have a relationship that is, not just pure doctor-patient, right? He clearly cares a lot about you. What was his sort of sense of counseling you around this procedure? And do you think that he kind of thinks of you as sort of a little bit more of a family member or friend than patient? And is it hard, do you think, for him to be subjective or objective? I mean,
I think in some sense, yes. I feel a little bit guilty, to be honest, about the kind of attention that I've been given and even the opportunity to take part in this new clinical trial for adaptive DBS. A lot of it is because of I wouldn't say it's because of my relationship with him, but that certainly played a role in me getting to this stage. But also I think it's because I am from what I understand, a good candidate for this particular trial. So I think I do fit the mold very well. But from what I understand, I'm being pushed to the front of the surgical line. So that does leave a bit of sense of guilt in me. But I would say that I'm kind of glad that I don't know the surgeon very well.
okay, I was going to ask you that next.
Yeah, I'm glad Dr. Fasano is not my surgeon, because I feel like we do have too close of a relationship for him to be operating on me. I wouldn't want to put that pressure on him to put that much, to put that pressure on him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is true. I was just talking to him earlier too about the fact that it would be hard for me to be removed. I mean, we have those relationships with our patients, certain patients, and so in some of those settings, I tend to get a lot of outside opinions from other colleagues, and I'm very honest about my, what I hope and dream for certain people that I'm very close to, and then it's like you kind of then have this very odd blinders on in some ways, and then it becomes very hard to make clinical decisions. So
yeah, but I would say that I think that relationship makes him a good person to be the programmer, but not a good person to be the surgeon.
right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. That's right. He knows you very well, I think, and I think he could be honest with you. So I think that's right. Do you think that it's going to put your relationship with your parents I mean, are they going to be sort of the ones taking you up and down, or who's going to kind of be involved on the team for kind of the Stetcher home team situation?
Yeah, so I will be relying on my parents to help out a bit, and thankfully they're both retired and have all the time in the world, and obviously care a lot about my well-being and my future. So in many ways, I couldn't possibly be in better hands. Yeah, they're anticipating it almost more than I am. They're also, I think, a little bit more fearful of it than I am, because so much of it is out of their control. They probably don't have as good of a grasp of everything that I'm going through as I do. It's a little bit more alien and a little bit more foreign to them, but they're managing well. I mean, both of them are very strong characters. They've both seen and been through a lot in their lives themselves. So I have no doubt that they're going to be able to make it through this, regardless of what happens. But it's going to be in a period of adjustment. Everybody's going to be adapting to the new realities and the new circumstances day by day. But I hope at the end of the day, it'll allow, like when all is said and done, it'll allow me to regain my independence from them. And then I'll be able to, because some of the things that I've done, I've voluntarily stopped driving this past year because I don't trust myself behind the wheel because of the dyskinesia. So there's in a lot of little ways, I think I'll be detaching myself from them to some degree because of this. But I think that'll be the best in everybody's best interest.
So that you feel like your quality of life has been compromised because of the motor symptoms of Parkinson's due to your fluctuations and dyskinesias, and that you've changed your activities of daily living to reflect that, and you'd like to gain certain sort of things back with more predictable on time, basically, is your goal.
Definitely. And there's also the social component of it as well, because it is more awkward dealing with people who dealing with friends who don't have a good understanding of what I'm going through, there's just a barrier that is hard to overcome. And if I can regain some semblance of normalcy, I think I'll be able to rekindle some older relationships that I've had, and yeah, just get back a lot of some of what I've lost. Although, I don't know, I've gained a lot as well along the way. And there's something to be said for kind of, I've really valued in some ways this year of kind of being very introspective and kind of not doing anything except exploring in some ways the recesses of my own mind, and just getting a chance to really reflect and have a lot of time to think and to plan and to, it's been yeah, I've said this a couple times along the way. If a pill came along that would suddenly reverse my Parkinson's, I would gladly take it, but I would hope that I would retain all the lessons that I've learned throughout.
Yeah.
I value the experiences that I've had.
So you talked about rekindling old connections. So are there people that you've sort of not told about your disease or have sheltered yourself from seeing because you felt like somehow embarrassed or stigmatized, or explain that to me? What does that mean?
Yeah, so it's just like simple things like going out to a bar at night is more troublesome for me now. It's not something that I used to be very, very comfortable in those environments, very outgoing and really wanting to do all those things. And now I've gotten to the point where anything past 10 p.m. is kind of off limits for me, because I feel like Cinderella in some sense. Once the clock hits a certain hour, I need to get the hell out of there, because I know that I'm going to become either too stiff or too dyskinetic, and it's just going to be too uncomfortable for me to stay in that environment.
Right. Interesting. Well, I mean, I think that all of these things are very, reasonable things to be feeling in your current sort of situation and your age and all those things. So I think that, I mean, sort of when I look at somebody and counsel them about going into surgery, I sort of want to make sure that they have reasonable expectations, so what we can do, what we can't do. And, largely it's in that sort of, trying to normalize, sort of give you more predictable on time without these sort of highs and lows. And I think that sounds like it's sort of your hope too. But, when people ask me, do you think it's protecting the brain from the progression of the disease, or do you think that there's, some other 7,000 other, benefits? And I, been in the game of taking care of game. I mean, I've been in the sort of world of betting on things and what is, this newfangled treatment and this newfangled treatment. And every time you see the pendulum swing here and there. And so I'm always sort of very careful with overstating the, or betting on the sort of world of any of these sort of things that are touted. But, I think that we know that this is, good, better on time throughout the day, possible reduction in medications, motor benefits are all, very much. And I think quality of life for those reasons is better too. But I think these other things, and I think you and I both know, enough about the non-motor world and these other sort of mind-body things and other stuff that I think, we'll have to see kind of, I guess you'll teach us a little bit about how it goes for you. And I think everyone's different. But when I think people think that, my tremor is 1,000% better, but why am I not feeling, that great or so much, better or normal, is because of those non-motor issues. And so when people come to us and say, hey, I don't feel any better, and you've been programming me for 6 months, a year, and then we show them, some people actually do videos pre and post and say, hey, this was you a year ago, and this is what you look like now. And your UPDRS score is motor is like this, but they still don't feel somehow, so much better from a quality of life or whatever it is perspective. I'm not 100% sure what explains that. I think some of it is non-motor. Maybe some of it is that there's some sense that, that the motor aspects explain everything. And so once you're normalized from a motor standpoint, that, you should be able to do all the stuff. And so the things that we as doctors see, where you're walking down the street and you look like a, otherwise normal, healthy person, but that you should be able to just go out and, get a job and get, start a family and, go on with your life. and why can't you do that? That's, I think, maybe that disconnect of like the expectations of you on yourself, your family on yourself, your doctors and everybody else on yourself, society on yourself, but you're still a person living with Parkinson's that has now, a device that's helping the motor symptoms. But those other changes, I think, are something that we don't fully understand still. And those might be reasons why people are not feeling, 1,000% different.
Yeah, and this is really the last thing I really wanted to hit on with you. Something that, coming back to like the benefits that I've gained from this past year, and something that I've learned about myself that I think will be very valuable going forward, is the ability to still be happy even if you have everything taken away from you. To kind of just be happy in existing in the world, even if it is discomforting, even if there is awkward moments, even if you can't do all the things you want to do, you can still be happy with life, regardless of whatever happens to your body, whatever happens in some sense to your mind, although there's a limit to that as well. But yeah, I think, and going forward, because in DBS, there is obviously the chance that something will go horrifically wrong and I'll end up worse than I started off. And I guess the reason why I'm so comfortable with DBS now is that I realize that even if the worst happens, I still know how to make myself, I still know how to be content with the world and with life.
Right. Right. I mean, I think I think that we have to provide you the tools to understand what, this surgery can and can't do. We have to provide you the risks and benefits, right, of what, in that 1% of chance that something goes wrong, like what your outcome could be. And then we have to trust that you can make those decisions given what we've given you in a smart way. I think that you are, just having gotten to know you on largely Zoom and whatever, Google Hangouts or whatever it is that we meetups or whatever it is. I think that you have been very introspective and you're just a remarkable person in the sense of, you're wise beyond your years, Ben, in whatever way. I don't know if you were always like that, but, I think that we've shared some very interesting conversations. And I think, you are not deluded into thinking that we as doctors have all the answers. And so I think we're just sort of working through it in the best way we can to get the best outcome for you. We have, some control over the outcome, but not all control. And you're not expecting some magical thing to happen, which I think, when that, sort of pressure is on us as the medical team to solve all the world's problems, I think it becomes hard, right? Because I think we know that it's not the be all and fix all and everything of everybody. So I think if we can just be honest and communicate well about expectations and, that we have equipped you with the stuff and you've chosen this and we can kind of counsel you around, what we would do, I guess, if it was the same for us or our brother. And then, we sort of enter the sort of procedure with just the best of all hopes and intentions. And, that's all we can really do. Right. So.
Yeah. There's an analogy that I don't know where I picked this up from, but I picked it up from somewhere. I used it in what I wrote today. I've come to see neurology as very much like going down, trying to plot a path down uncharted waters. The doctors and scientists are kind of like the cartographers and the engineers. They can roughly sketch the terrain and give you some of the tools you needed to help you navigate. But at the end, you just got to kind of get in the boat and ride it yourself. And there's this whole community of people around that can help and that can help guide you through those waters. But you got to have, I guess, just ultimately the courage to keep paddling and to keep going forward and find joy in whatever you can along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that sounds about right. I love that quote. I'm going to ask you a last question. So are you a religious man, Ben? Do you have
I'm not religious, but through Parkinson's and everything I've learned, I've definitely become more connected to myself as a part of the cycle of life and as a living thing in the world, but not in any I mean, I was raised in a Jewish home, but I'm Jewish. I don't have any profound belief in any book or any holy man or woman, but I do feel a very strong connection to life, to humanity, and to life on Earth. I would say that. And I think for me, that is that it speaks to some of the same things that religion speaks to in a lot of people.
Yeah, I think so. I think that you and I have spoken about that a little bit, and you feel connected to the sort of, I think, was it you're all the mitochondria and the protoplasm of the world or something, the universe or something like that. I mean, I think, I mean, the Eastern philosophies speak a lot more about that sort of universal connection and the sort of energy that we all come from and are part of, and we're all connected. I mean, a lot of the, Hindu philosophies, Buddhist philosophies and stuff speak around that. And so, I think that, I was just wondering where you get comfort then, and sort of, when you're stressed and when you're thinking about that worst case scenario, where are you getting energetic comfort from? Is it your sort of parents? Is it your, the trust in the system? Is it your some spiritual connection to something? Like where is that sort of kind of comfort coming from? Or some people would pray, right? Or some people would just do something like a week before they're having a surgery, saying like, let me go to temple and like offer some flowers to God or whatever, or like read the Bible 10 times, or I don't know, whatever. What are you doing? Is there anything that you're doing that's different?
So there's nothing I'm doing that's different. It does come back to this understanding I have. It's very like, it walks with me throughout life. It's just like even right now, I'm feeling some discomfort. I'm feeling some awkwardness because of the dyskinesia. But that's when I close my eyes and I think about who I am and what I am, and all that's happening in my body at this moment, and all that had to happen for me to be where I am today. 99.9999999% of things went right, are going exactly as they should be. There's a few things deep inside my brain that are not doing what they should be doing, but there's so much that's happening that's right, that's allowing me to experience life, to experience being a living, thinking thing in this world, that I can't help but be appreciative of that. And also, I think I have a more, I don't know, intimate's the right word, but a close relationship with death. It's something that I think about a lot. And having an understanding of yourself as kind of, or just understanding that, some people get 40 years, some people get 80 years. In the end, that's not a huge difference. It's just 2 times more, but it's also fleeting. It doesn't matter if it's 40 years or 80 years. It's a snapshot in time.
Yeah.
It's about, there's a quote from Gandalf that I really like. I can't remember exactly what the words are, but something along the lines of, don't worry about how much time you're given. Just worry about what to do with the time that you have. And that, more than anything else, I think calms me down and settles me if and when my nerves are ever in a wreck. Just that understanding that this is life. There's beauty in it all. Even in, I mean, there's all sorts of senseless things that happen in the world, but it's hard to find the words exactly to explain what I'm trying to say.
I mean, I could picture like a sea of mud and then like a little lotus kind of, blossoming out from that, sort of sea of whatever it is, excrement or I don't know, whatever. But I hear what you're saying. I think there is a beauty in life and just in human connection and, the stories that we all share and the food that we eat and the, seeing the sun and putting your feet in the grass or, feeling the breeze or whatever. I mean, I don't know, it's sort of a beauty, and it's simplicity, but I think we forget that. And then there's we complicate it with all this other UPDRSs and junk like that. But I mean, it's sort of like at the essence. And I think you're treating doctor as brilliant scientist extraordinaire with all his little, directional steering and I don't know, whatever else he does all day long. It's not exactly what I do, but it's like this amazing kind of engineering like wizard with like all the technical things. Is still a very embodied human being who, has, he's a musician and a Renaissance kind of guy. So, I think, we're all very multifaceted and it's kind of a cool thing, right? So, I think that.
Sorry, one last thing I want to get on the record is like that spiel that I just gave now. I'm very aware of the fact that I'm not giving it as myself because of the dyskinesia. And that's something that I hope more than anything else in some sense to get back from the DBS is to be able to express, not even express myself, but to even in my own mind more eloquently state what I hope to say. Because the dyskinesia does it distracts from your attention. It takes away from your ability to focus on the words that you're saying. So I know I used to speak much more eloquently than I do now. And I hope to be able to get back to that point where I can express myself as clearly and as accurately as I want to.
Yeah. So I think as a last thing, Ben, so what, so let's say you have the surgery and you can get some of this back. What's your hope? What's your dream? What do you want to do with the rest of your life?
So
with that Gandalf quote that you just said, it's like, it doesn't matter how long you have or how long you live, but like what you do, or what was it again? Something like that.
Ours is not to, I think to say, I remember he was talking to Frodo and Frodo was complaining about the ring. And Gandalf leaned over and said, all who live to see such times complain about these kinds of things, but yours is not to worry about, or just worry about what to do with the time that you're given. Don't worry about so much how much time you have.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you want to do? What would what is Ben Stetcher here to do?
I see myself. So what really motivates me, I guess, is connecting worlds and propping people up and building bridges and educating people. But more than anything else, I always kind of dreamed, not always, but as soon as I graduated, I had a sense that I wanted to go out and see the world. And once I did, I realized how similar we all are. I think humanity is in a very perilous state right now. There's a lot of forces at work that are leading us off a cliff in some sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to play whatever small role I can in making sure that we steer ourselves in a more spiritual and humane direction. I'd love to be able to go back to China and continue some of the work that I was doing there, building bridges between communities in China and between China and the West. I'd love to be able to go to Africa and help with some of the work like Omotola Thomas is doing, and make sure that they have access to medications, maybe even help promote DBS in that part of the world, because I'm sure people don't have access to that either. Yeah, I guess more than anything, to give back to humanity. I feel like I've been very blessed to live the life that I've lived. And I feel like I have a lot to give, and that I'd like to do what I can to, give back to life, which has given me everything that I know.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Do you want to say anything else? Any other questions you want to have me ask you?
No, just thank you. Thank you for taking the time. I said it behind your back a couple times, and I think I said it to your face once as well. But it is so early on in my journey, it was very rare to come across any neurologist that would take this kind of time to talk to a patient audience or patients in general. Um, yeah, it's I, I don't know. I'm struggling to find the words right now, but I think you get what I mean.
Yeah, I totally get what you mean. No, I'm happy to spread your message and happy to help you figure out what it is that you want to say as well. Sometimes it's hard to say it spontaneously. So, but I'm thrilled to have been able to spend this time with you. And yeah, let's maybe, reconnect, but maybe the day before the surgery or something, or 2 days. We'll see how you feel. And, as you get closer, maybe we can, re-look at some things. But I wish you the very best, Ben. And I think that you'll pass with flying colors. It'll be awesome. So we'll continue to do our movers and shakers, and you hopefully won't be shaking as much, moving better. So, but anyway, I'll send you this, and much love, Ben. All right, take it easy, and we will. I'll stop recording. So how are you doing?
I'm doing surprisingly well. I would not have known that I had brain surgery less than 36 hours ago.
Wow, that's really good. So why, like, what is surprisingly well? I mean, like, you're not in pain, or you're feeling emotionally kind of up? Like, what does that mean?
I feel basically no pain. Actually, the IV in my hand hurts more than anything on my head. Maybe that's the fault of the IV. I don't know. But yeah, I feel remarkably good, I would say. I feel like I've gone back 5-6 years in the past. It's kind of what I was hoping for, even though nothing's on, no stimulation happening. There's no battery isn't in yet. It's just, I guess, the effects of the micro lesions that are taking place.
Mm-hmm.
I feel euphoric, I would say.
That's good. So leading up to the surgery, I think we talked last week. Was there any more anxiety that you were having, like the day before? Do you recall kind of getting worried if something bad happened, or making some plans if something, like what was sort of your mental state the day before surgery?
I was very calm. I was very calm going in. I was very calm all the way through. Part of it might have been to try to ease the anxiety of my parents, but I was genuinely unafraid and genuinely anxious to see this through. The only part that sucked, well, there was a couple parts that sucked, but after the surgery was over, there was like 5 or 6 hours where I had a splitting headache. That went away, and then I've been feeling pretty great ever since.
Mm-hmm. And then what were the other parts that sucked?
The freezing. The freezing was actually the worst part, where I was probably stabbed a dozen times in the head, in the forehead, and on the top of the head.
Okay.
Just with needles to dull the pain.
Mm-hmm.
What else? The drilling was tough. The drilling was tough to get through. Not the pain, but because you hear everything is rattling. The whole world feels like it's rattling. Other than that, it's just 4 hours of sitting there with that giant frame on your head, the things digging into your skull. That's the only annoying part. Otherwise, yeah, it was pretty smooth.
So take us up from the day, the weeks prior. So what was your pre-op like? Maybe what was your day before, morning of? What was that? What kind of things did you have to do to prepare for the surgery?
So I made sure about 3 days before that I changed my sleeping patterns, because I had to get to the hospital here at 6 a.m. So I wanted to make sure I was alert and awake and with it throughout the whole thing. So I woke up at 5 in the morning or so that day. And yeah, yeah.
You couldn't eat the night before, right? Probably.
I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink. But yeah, it felt good throughout. And I don't know why, but leading up to it, in like the hours beforehand, I felt very serene, very calm, very relaxed, and anxious to get it through.
Mhm. How did you get through? Like, was there breathing stuff that you were doing when it was tough in the OR? Like, what kind of, did you, now reflecting back, would you have, thought to advise yourself of, like, to get kind of through it now that you've kind of been through it?
I guess what put me at ease more than anything else was I knew the team very well. I had a good relationship with the surgeon, and I felt in good hands. I felt like they knew what they were doing. And I felt as though that whatever happened, I was going to be okay. I don't know. I just had this overwhelming sense that everything was going to work out fine, and it did. The surgeon described the whole procedure as textbook, and he hit the bullseye right on target. There was a lot of cool moments in the surgery, I would say. Watching the insertions go in on like the monitor in front of you, hearing the recordings of the electrophysiological signals as they were like diving into your brain, and hearing the static of your own subthalamic nucleus. That was cool. And I'm going to get a copy of that recording. So I'm looking forward to playing that back and hearing what my brain sounds like.
Mm-hmm. So they let you see it all on a monitor? How did that work?
Not the whole thing, but there's like a stereotactic, I don't know what that means exactly, stereotactic audio touch. So I guess it was feeling its way through the audio signals that it was getting. And you see like it almost looked like a bullseye in front of you. And you gradually see the leads come into the target, and they touch the center. And they move up and down a bit. And yeah, then they turn on the stimulation, and they test they do all the UPDRS stuff. And yeah.
So then you were asleep for some period before and after, or were you awake? What was the whole thing like? Do you remember?
I was awake for the entire procedure. I went to sleep probably a couple hours afterwards, just because I was exhausted. But I was awake for the whole thing. I was conscious. I was lucid, and I was talking throughout as well. One kind of weird thing was there was like a gallery section behind me of neurologists in training during the surgery, during the OOP. Probably 20 people or so, maybe not that many. But yeah, I felt like I was performing in some sense,
Huh.
even though doing anything except lying there and staying still. Yeah.
Why did you have so many people? Was this because of the study that you were in, the new procedure that they did, or was that just how that it is in that operating room? It's very busy with trainees.
I think it has to do with both. One, it was a novel procedure. I was the first patient enrolled in this trial in all of Canada, and Toronto's a teaching hospital as well. So that was the other kind of weird thing. The surgeon was constantly going back and forth between checking in on me and talking to the gallery of people behind him, like explaining what he was doing as he was doing it. Yeah, and he was also, so he wasn't, as far as I could tell, he wasn't the one doing all of the surgery stuff. It was not a resident, but maybe he was a resident.
A fellow. Yeah.
Yeah. He was just guiding him through the whole thing. He was telling him what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's cool getting a play-by-play from him as it was going. And then I was constantly asking him questions, constantly asking him to explain everything.
Are you serious? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And I know that you wanted to video some part of this. Did that end up happening, or what went
No,
on?
but he took a bunch of pictures, and I'm excited to get those pictures.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing the thing go in.
Wow, so you were lucid enough to ask questions and grill the guy while he's trying to put this stuff in your head and teach a bunch of other students. That's pretty great, Ben.
There were a couple of times when he had to tell me to shut up, basically,
Yeah,
or to be quiet, just because, especially during the electrical recordings when they were
yeah.
trying to find the right spot, he had to tell me a couple of times, like, stop talking. We need to listen to what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had good fun in there, actually.
That's cute. You're there's never a place where you don't have questions, right? There's never a time or place where you're not, you turn off that inquisitive mind of yours. So that's cute. So and then you came out and you were sleeping in the hospital bed. Yeah. Did you go to the ICU at all, or was it just to the floor?
Just to the recovery room, and then to the room I'm in now. And then tomorrow I get the battery inserted and the wires hooked up, and Friday I'm out of here.
Okay. And then what's the plan for programming?
I think it starts a month later, but I think it depends on how I recover. One question I have, I've heard that from in a number of places, they don't actually keep people awake, that some centers put people to sleep, some centers keep people awake. Why is that difference? Do you know?
I think you'd have to ask the actual surgeons about that more. But I mean, I think some places they rely a lot more on the localization of, the actual like MRI guided coordinates and everything else, and the frame. Other places, I think they rely on sort of the symptom, like what effects people have in the operating room and testing them. So I think these sort of schools have kind of been defined a little bit by the lineage, I think, of whoever trained people. But I think there's not like one way, and it seems very different depending on what center and who trained you and stuff like that. So but yeah, we should definitely tease that out, and maybe we could have your surgeon on and we could talk about it, and Dr. Fasano on too, and find out what the differences are. I mean, I think some places have been very MRI coordinate dependent. Some people are not as dependent on that. I know for us, we have my surgeon at the VA does some fiducial sort of placement stuff like before the surgery by a week or a couple weeks, and then uses those to help, figure out the surgery coordinates, and then, does everything in one go, and puts the battery in and everything else. Some places even used to do like one side and then go back and do the other with these different staging. Some of it also may have to do with billing, I think, depending on what types of place you are, and the how much you can bill for this or that or whatever. Maybe also in reimbursement might have something to do with it, but it seems very center dependent. But I don't know. We don't keep people fully asleep either, so I think that's certain. I think it's probably less common to do that, but
Indu, sorry, I'm gonna have to cut you off. I have to go to the bathroom really bad right now.
Okay, no worries. Okay, I'll pause it. So you said something about this, this microlesional effect. What do you think it's affecting? How do you know what's going on? What's your sense of things? I'm sure, knowing you, Ben, you've been examining yourself continuously in the last 36 hours. So show us what you got.
I have been. So one thing I can do is move my hand in much more fluid ways than I ever could before. This is like how I could move my hand probably 5 years ago. I guess the biggest thing is this is the first day, I don't know if I've said this before, but this is the first day in about 5 years that I haven't had that sine wave, that I haven't had that on-off fluctuation, that it's been predictable, that I know what my state is going to be like an hour from now, 2 hours from now, or at least I feel like I do. Yeah, it's having like a smooth day without those fluctuations. I guess I realize now how much those fluctuations were impeding my quality of life. Yeah, I had to plan my entire day really around those fluctuations. When I ate, when I would do physical activity, when I would leave the house for anything, all of them, I had to make sure that I was in the right on-off state and that I wasn't about to turn on. Because if I turned on, yeah. So for instance, driving. I haven't driven in probably a year because I just didn't trust myself at some point because of the dyskinesia. I wanted to make sure I was never behind the wheel when I was dyskinetic. So I haven't, well, also because of the pandemic. But for the most part, I haven't been driving for that reason. Now, if this holds, and I'm guessing it won't, I'm guessing it's going to fade away pretty soon. But I'm guessing this is more or less what the on state is going to be like once the simulation gets turned on. I would feel comfortable now getting behind the wheel of a car. So that's the biggest thing.
I mean, I think there's definitely, you know, some sense that because of, you know, passing the electrode through and some swelling and transient cell shifts, cell, whatever, tissue shifting, cell, whatever, that there's disruption in tissue, and that might be kind of like, you know, what you're going to get with your sort of when they do the stimulation. But I also don't know how much of other medicines you're on. That might be, you know, pain medicine, anesthesia wearing off. Like, do you have any sense of that? Or
But I just have this IV drip. Otherwise, and just some antibiotics. Otherwise, I'm not on anything, I think.
so it's just like IV antibiotics and
And a little bit of Parkinson's meds, a little bit of amantadine and pramipexole, and a little bit of levodopa.
okay. Yeah. So, I mean, and you said it's been how many hours since you came out of the operating room?
I came out at about 1 to 2 p.m. yesterday. So what, that's 30 hours ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you look really good. I like
Thank
the look, the hat, whatever, the bandage. That's not a bad look for you. You look
I've been
great.
told I'll need to keep this for a while.
So yeah, you're excited to leave on Friday, but it looks like quite calm and everyone seems nice around you. And you have, it looks like made some friends in the operating room and other places. So try to be nice to all of them. And, all right,
Sorry,
well,
I'm just getting a new nurse.
Yep.
Daisy.
I'm Daisy.
hi, we're just, we're actually recording. Hopefully that's okay with you. We might have to get your permission to show this.
Say hi, that's it.
I don't think we can recognize you anyway because you have so much masks and other things. But anyway, so all right. Well, good to see you, Ben. You look great. I was, you know, praying it all worked out for you. And you texted me. You're like, oh, like sent me like a video first thing in the morning. I was like, wait, is today this? I was gonna wish you luck because I thought it was today, but then I realized it was yesterday and tomorrow. So so I was a bit confused time wise. But you look great. And yeah, we'll check back in. And good luck with tomorrow. And yeah, get some rest.
All right, will do. Thank you,
Okay.
Indu.
Bye. No worries. Take it easy.